Been out here all morning. Not a single bite. Guess the fish finally figured it out. Just like hackers do when Cisco Duo's on guard. With Duo's end-to-end phishing resistance, every login, every device, every user stays protected. No hooks, no catches, no bites. Cisco Duo. Phishing season is over. Learn more at duo.com.
And we are live again, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is the Marketing Geeks. We are back and better than ever. Justin.
Yo.
I've been thinking a little bit about certain things, and one of those is the idea of language, and how Burroughs said that language is a virus from outer space, and it's constantly shifting and changing. But I mean, language doesn't have any meaning anymore. But you know what does is visual graphics, and I consider myself a visual learner. How about yourself?
I would say I'm an auditory learner myself, but keep going. Where are you going with this?
Take infographics, for instance.
Okay.
I love infographics, but I don't know the science behind them. I have no idea how to do that. So guess what I did?
What's that?
I found ourselves an expert.
Really?
Yeah, man. It's for serious.
For serious. All right. Well, let's do it then. Let's talk to this expert about this visual stuff.
All right, man. And without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Andros Sturgeon.
And I'm Justin Womack.
And we are the Marketing Geeks.
Marketing Geeks.
There we are, ladies and gentlemen.
We're back.
Yes. Here we are, the Marketing Geeks. Hey, Justin, tell us about tonight's guest.
Tonight's guest, yes, we have Amy Balliett, and she is the CEO and founder of the creative content agency Killer Visual Strategies, formerly called Killer Infographics. She owned her first company, a candy store and ice cream parlor, at the age of 17 before heading off for college, and subsequently built a successful career in SEO and marketing before launching Killer Visual Strategies in 2010. And for the years since, she's grown that company to become the industry leader in visual communication, driving visual strategy, creative content, campaigns for global brands like Microsoft, Boeing, Adobe, Nikon, Starbucks, the National Endowment of for the Arts, and the United Nations. Wow. She's considered an expert in her field. Balliett speaks at dozens of conferences each year, including South by Southwest, Adobe Max, SMX, and more. And she regularly teaches at the School of Visual Concepts and for several colleges and universities as a guest lecturer. So please welcome to the show, Amy Balliett. Amy, how are you today?
I'm doing okay. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for the claps too.
Yeah, for sure. We're all about that. So that's quite an impressive resume. So for those who don't know who you are, and can you expand a little bit about what you do and how you do it and how you ended up doing exactly what you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. So Killer Visual Strategies, formerly known as Killer Infographics, as my hoodie shows, is a visual communication and creative content agency. What we do is we help our clients connect with their end audiences through visual communication specifically, which is content that graphically represents the information rather than hitting your audience with a wall of text, which today's audiences just aren't really wanting to check out. You grab the audience with high quality visuals that tell the story for you, and maybe limited text is used in the type of content that we produce, but it's really all about really leaning into the brain science of our own forms of communication and how we love visuals and how we crave communicating through visuals. So we really help our clients connect with that demand. 91% of audiences today demand visual content as their primary, secondary, and tertiary form of communication from the brands that want their attention. So we help brands do that.
So where's this showing up, this kind of content? Is this showing up on social media? Is it showing up on blogs or websites? Where's this content showing up?
Honestly, everywhere. Marketers today are using 12 to 14 types of visual content to accomplish singular goals. So that might mean putting out some bite-sized content on social that drives people into a conversion funnel. It might also mean other aspects of that conversion funnel. Maybe you've got somebody getting into the top of that funnel through very high-level visual content, but in the middle of that funnel, maybe you're sending them a highly visual ebook, for instance. So it's really through that whole conversion funnel process, but it also exists offline as well. I mean, the fact of the matter is the billboard industry was the leader of the visual communication world before marketers started really jumping into it for the needs of digital marketing. And so, I mean, we see visual communication all around us in the physical realm. And when we get back to a place where we're actually going to conferences again, you're going to see, just like before, visual content used wildly within expo halls. It's one of the best ways to get your audience and to get them intrigued in your product or service. If your staff at your conference booth is too busy, just having the right visual brochures that are truly visual, not a brochure that's stock imagery and paragraphs of text, but truly a nice visual piece or an infographic backdrop. Those are all things that help grab that audience and convert them.
Cool. How did you get into this, like initially? Because you had your first business at 16?
17.
So how did you go from that to doing what you're doing now?
Honestly, like a typical millennial, jumping around from career to career until I found something that was a mishmash of all of it. I mean, that's really the best way to think about it. I went to film school. I fell in love with visual storytelling at a very young age and always knew that I wanted to be doing something in the space of visual storytelling. But my very practical and pragmatic parents told me, minor in something realistic. So I minored in marketing and majored in film and moved out to Seattle after I graduated. I grew up in Cleveland, graduated Cleveland State University, moved out to Seattle to kind of enter the world of film. I was really looking into documentary filmmaking, which was something that you could really get the right network for in Seattle, Washington. So it was one of the reasons I came out here. But I found that I was really in love with marketing too. So I have had a lot of different roles. I've been a video editor and a graphic designer, and I have worked in motion picture marketing. And then I've jumped right into SEO and online marketing for a completely different world and completely different set of industries before kind of merging it all together to create what was then Killer Infographics. And even then, it was an accident. It was a reaction to people asking us to design infographics for them because we were designing them for a completely different business model. We were designing them for our own marketing needs. And people started asking for those infographics for themselves because they saw the success we were having. And so it just pivoted.
It's funny how that works sometimes when you do those things like that. So for Killer Visual Strategies now, is film a part of that? Are you doing videos like explainer videos or graphical videos as part of the company too?
Definitely. So, we launched in 2010, just doing infographics, hence our original name. And by 2012, we really saw that opening to start doing motion graphics and explainer videos. In fact, the chief creative officer of my company was hired as an intern on April 1st of 2012. We still haven't told him that it's still an April Fool's joke. He wasn't really hired. But he was hired as an intern, and he climbed up the ladder at the company because he came to me and said, I can see you want a motion department, but you don't have the time to make it happen. So I'm going to make it happen. And he built our motion department. It's a big part of what we do.
That's the kind of person you want on your staff.
Yeah.
Cool. So you basically took, like, you've always been interested in the visual medium with film, and so you kind of pivoted to that. I mean, it's kind of funny because I had a similar sort of thing myself where I was always a storyteller, wrote scripts and tried to make it in Hollywood until I realized everyone in there was a psychopath. But marketing is fantastic, and you can definitely use those same skills. So how did you pivot that to infographics, and when did that really take off for you?
It really started June of 2010. when I designed what I consider to be the worst infographic that has ever existed in the world. And it's actually on a bunch of top 10 lists as the worst infographic of all time. I show it in my book because I want to show off how I started. It's just a horrible piece. But I did it for a different website I had. At the time, I had a business partner, and we were building a bunch of websites through affiliate models. So we were trying to basically kind of have 20 to 30 affiliate sites that we could really drive revenue with. Mm-hmm. And in 2010, link building and really moving up in SERPs because of a really good high quality anchor link was still one of the most important aspects of Google's algorithm. Yep. It's still important today, but not nearly as much as it was in 2010. And infographics were a great way of getting inbound links. And in 2010, nobody had a set of standards for what quality was for an infographic. So you could honestly produce something as low quality as what I designed, slap the word infographic on it, which I did, even though it's a really bad design, and you can get a bunch of links. And I got about 2,000 or 3,000 backlinks in just a couple of weeks with the first infographic.
Wow.
Second infographic, same thing. So we just started putting out a couple of infographics a month and just churning in backlinks. And then from there, around August of that same summer, my old business partner came to me and said, I thought of a really cool name last night, Killer Infographics, and the domain is available. What should we do with it? And so we decided, let's build a website that acts as a directory that kind of takes all the infographics online and provides a full, thorough review of what works and what doesn't. And that was the original kind of aspect of Killer Infographics. But after just a few weeks of pulling all of those different infographics online onto the site and reviewing them, and then charging people for reviews, we had people coming to us saying, well, you think that our infographics are awful. Clearly you can do better. So we'll pay you to do infographics from now on. And it was then that I saw an opportunity. Our affiliate sites were doing so-so. I knew a big Google algorithm shift was coming up. I mean, this was the time of Panda and Penguin, the biggest algorithm shifts that really kind of shook how modern marketing was at the time. And so I knew that these algorithm shifts were coming down the road and that we didn't have the capacity to change all of our websites in time. And so I started really pushing for this idea of hiring some designers and building a small agency. And the original idea was that it was going to help fund the other sites while we grew those sites, and eventually those sites would take over and still stay our business. But after even, about 6 months or so, it was quite clear that Killer was the winner. The other sites weren't. So we just shifted all of our attention to Killer, and the rest is kind of history. We grew from there.
Nice. I've got a question from someone who's watching the live stream right now. Gerard Foos asks that Amy, we see a ton of infographics these days on socials like Pinterest and Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about the graphics at trade shows. Do you think the impact is similar on social when the graphics are smaller and much more abundant?
Yes and no. So it depends on the graphic itself is the real answer. The fact is 99% of the visual content that's being pushed out there is so low quality that it's not going to succeed. It's not going to cut through the noise. HubSpot put out a statistic that is one of my favorites. It's 94% of first impressions are based on design. If you're leading with a subpar or low quality design, the first impression somebody's going to have, which by the way, it takes 1/10 of a second to form a first impression. The first impression that somebody's going to have is going to be incredibly negative about your brand. Yet what cuts through the noise are the completely custom and original graphics that have very little text. The graphics that aren't just slapping text on top of a stock photo. The graphics that aren't taking a bunch of stock vector, stock illustration assets that don't even match and somehow putting them together in a design. So the super quality designs, those succeed. They will cut through all of that noise. And they'll cut through the noise because our brain science is actually made, we're hardwired to give our attention to that content. But we are also hardwired to completely ignore low quality content.
So to elaborate on this, so if I'm scrolling through my LinkedIn or Facebook feed, one of the things that's going to stop someone like me is going to be a quality logo that is not, like, obviously not clip art, not from Canva, like done professionally. What are some other things that would get people's attention? Because on Facebook, we're all scrolling through, we're getting our dopamine hits. What are the things that kind of break the pattern of that to kind of make somebody stop? Like, can you give some examples of some of the other things that you're doing that are working, that you're finding success with?
Definitely. First and foremost, a big rule that I give and I break down in my book is avoid the stigma of stock. Stock imagery will not stop somebody. Somebody will completely gloss over stock imagery as they're kind of scrolling through that feed. What really captures people's attention on social does depend on the social channel. On Facebook, you're going to get a lot more attention if you're leading with a 30-second or less motion graphic, something that is animated, something that is clearly using entirely custom illustrations throughout. On something like LinkedIn, you're actually going to get more attention by having a selfie style video, because people want to hear from thought leaders on LinkedIn. And so it feels more authentic to connect with somebody through a selfie style video on LinkedIn. But that selfie style video needs to be framed really well, meaning the kind of top and bottom of it, kind of like a letterbox on a normal 16:9 video, but a selfie style should feel portrait. You should still have a top and bottom where you have a very clean logo, and at the bottom, a clean call to action, no clip art, no crazy typography, just really modern typography. Definitely don't use things like Papyrus and Comic Sans, for instance.
Comic Sans is going to make a comeback. I'm telling you. It's on my 2020 list of apocalypse things that are going to happen.
Comic Sans, yes.
Comic Sans.
That would cap off 2020. You're right. That's a perfect apocalypse 2020 edition.
Well, to continue down this road here, let's talk about custom fonts. Mm-hmm. So do you not value custom fonts all that much? You just think that you need to have a clean font? So because I've talked to a few different people about this, and I've heard differing opinions. Some of them are like swear that you have to have a custom font, or you're basically wasting your brand. Can you talk a little bit about custom fonts?
Definitely. So there's two types of custom fonts, honestly. There's custom fonts that feel a little sloppy, feel a little overdone. I'll give you an example. Lobster, I used to love that custom font. It used to be one of my absolute favorites, but then it became so overused that it's actually gone the way of Comic Sans and Papyrus. So you kind of have to pay attention to trends. When it comes to getting great custom fonts, I suggest going to Lost Type. Lost Type is a phenomenal resource of the best, most popular fonts out there. They are beautiful fonts, but you should only lead with one custom font if you're delivering visual content. And what I often see is people get so excited about all the different types of fonts out there that they're trying to pair 3 or 4 custom fonts, and it just feels like a jumbled mess at that point. So having one unique custom font that you use for your headline and your call to action, that's a great idea. You can also use it for any number labels and things like that. But from there, you should focus on some traditional fonts that people are used to reading online, because it'll make it easier for them to digest the content. It won't feel overwhelming to them.
Interesting.
So what goes into, like, what are the elements of a good infographic? Like if I wanted to say, explain that there was a podcast that was very awesome and some stats around that, especially a podcast around, say, marketing, for instance, how would you, like, what when you get a hypothetically, and it only has 7 listeners, how would you break down a particular story? Like when you get a job, what are the elements that go into making a winning infographic?
So there's 8 rules broken down in my book, and I can kind of dive into a few of them. When it comes down to an infographic itself, one of our first rules and our favorite rule is always think about context. It's a con when there's too much text. Very simple, easy rule to remember. So when we're preparing to design an infographic, one of the first things we'll do is really work out the word for word content of that infographic, that script. That script has to be developed first, because that's going to inform the design, but it also gives us the opportunity to really identify where the text is too much versus too little, so that we can get it to a point where it's not too text heavy. When it comes to the design of the infographic, a high quality, well-designed infographic is going to incorporate a few key features. First and foremost, it's going to use a column-based layout. The same way a great web design uses a column-based layout. An infographic should do the same. People often think, well, it's not a website, so I'm not restricted to specific columns. But if you actually follow a 2 to 4 column structure in an infographic, you're going to find that everything feels so much more organized, and it will be far, far easier for the viewer to actually take the information in. Another thing to consider is making sure that the entire illustration style throughout the infographic is the same style. This is one of the biggest mistakes that people make. They often will buy a bunch of stock vector assets, or they'll be building an infographic in Canva, which has a lot of stock vector assets. And they can't find the illustration they want from one vector pack, so they go find it from a different pack. But those end up being completely different illustration styles, and that just clashes. It ends up becoming something that's really hard on the eyes. I also often see designers mix 2D and 3D elements. You got to pick one. You got to go all out 3D, or you have to go all out 2D, but don't mix those styles. Another big factor is a healthy use of typography, and really making sure that you're choosing fonts that carry the story forward or elicit an emotional response based on the narrative that you're trying to tell. That's something that we always are looking for. And then when it comes down to the color palette, that's a big one. I have a rule in my book that says there's no gold at the end of that rainbow. In other words, you do not need a rainbow of colors on an infographic. Focus on 3 primary colors. And then of those 3 primary colors, consider really, if you need other colors, use shades of the 3 primary colors. And in those 3, one color should be your standout color. It should be your pop color that you use for important pieces. So maybe it's the color that's always representing a number in your infographic, as well as your call to action. But you shouldn't be using your colors just willy-nilly. Basically, every single visual choice you make should be based on building patterns for the end viewer. So you really have to kind of lean into those patterns. Don't use a bunch of different font sizes, for instance. Stick to specific font sizes for headlines, supporting font, and labels.
So what emotion is Andros conveying with Comic Sans, and what narrative is he saying?
That I refuse to grow up. So if I were, say, graphically impaired, how?
I like that. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, to put it mildly. How would you recommend someone like myself put together a infographic? I mean, there's lots of infographic, templates that you can get. There's Canva, of course, but where would someone who doesn't have any skills, where would someone like me start?
Well, is Canva enough also?
So I think Canva has a lot of good uses to it, but the issue that we're going to find with Canva is simply the fact that your competitor could be using the exact same template, the exact same iconography, the exact same vector assets. Another big issue we find with Canva is people who don't have an eye for design, like Andros was just saying, people who don't have an eye for design can end up spending hours upon hours putting something together in Canva. And because they put all that time in, they kind of lose the ability to judge the quality of the design. They end up thinking it's a great design. They put it out to the general public. It fails. And in its failure, they blame the infographic. They say, oh, infographics aren't meant for me, instead of realizing that the issue is actually the design itself. So the true answer is, if you are not a designer and you don't have an eye for design, don't try to make the content yourself. Because again, 94% of first impressions are based on design, and you only get a first impression once. You don't want to risk that. Hire a good designer. Hire somebody whose portfolio shows great infographics already. Because I'll tell you this, when we started, we tested out over 250 designers with beautiful portfolios, but only 5 of them worked. Only
Wow.
5 of them could actually design an infographic. It turns out that you can have a fantastic portfolio. You can be an amazing designer, but it takes a very specific mindset to be able to design for visual communication, to be able to properly design an infographic. And so the fact is just a portfolio without infographics won't do it. You got to find somebody who's designed infographics before and who's really seasoned in it if you want to get a really good graphic. And that's one of the things I cover in my book is actually the concept that if you're looking for a freelancer, here's the hourly rate you should be paying. If you're going to a freelancer that's charging you less than that hourly rate, most likely you're going to have really bad content as your end result.
And what is that hourly rate?
It depends on the type of freelancer you're looking at, but on average, $50 an hour at minimum for a good designer. $70 an hour, you're going to get a really great designer. If you're working with an agency, you're going to be paying $100 to $200 an hour, depending on the agency. But I break down every type of visual content to expect for a marketer and exactly how many hours that work should take for a combined team, that being a writer, a designer, a project manager, and hourly rates that you should expect to pay if you're paying a freelancer versus somebody in-house versus an agency. That way marketers can truly understand how to find the best possible partners for something like this. But also I'm hoping that it'll help designers as well, because a lot of designers don't know how to price themselves, and they have a lot of downward pricing pressure because of the international market. So ultimately,
Fiverr.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, ultimately, my goal is to empower marketers, because marketing is really my primary background and something that I love. And I found that as a marketer, I had to hire all of these different agencies to just accomplish my own marketing goals and hit my metrics at my company that I was working at and get my bonus. And that's the thing, when you're a marketer, your bonus is based on hitting specific metrics, and all of a sudden you have to hire an external agency, and you kind of put that livelihood of yours in their hands, and that can be terrifying. And so marketers need to be empowered. They need to know how to manage projects like this, what to expect, and how to set proper expectations. And that's really, really my goal in life and in all my speaking, is to help empower marketers to do that properly.
And part of that, I think, is like kind of self-awareness and knowing your own limitations. So you need to know, like, okay, I'm not good at graphic design, so that's something I have to assign to somebody else or outsource.
Yeah.
But I can handle the Facebook advertising component where I'm running the ads itself and tracking the data. But so part of that is just kind of a self-awareness. Go ahead, Andros.
So in short, just like a chainsaw juggling, you should leave it to the experts. I learned this lesson the hard way. Just, you know. I have another question here from one of our listeners viewing live. How much of the physiology versus psychology goes into designing a killer infographic? Meaning yellow on black and movement are easy to use for us to see, versus how we look at the corners of a picture or the human face first. Those types of distinctions.
So ultimately, when you're designing for any form of visual communication, whether it be an infographic or a motion graphic or what have you, you really do have to consider the psychology of your end audience. And there's 2 aspects of that psychology. there's the innate brain science that exists in all of us. And then there's kind of the personal preferences of your exact target audience. So when we think about that brain science that exists in all of us, some key things to consider are the fact that visual information can actually get to the brain 60,000 times faster than any other form of communication that exists. The reason for that is because visual processing is one of the first things our brain really learns how to do. And if you think back just back to caveman times, if you will, the very first form of expression and communication that we have on record is cave paintings on walls. And that's because it was instinctual for us to communicate visually. And in a world where we're inundated with information left and right, it makes sense that we're kind of rolling back to those base instincts. The concept or the phrase, the path of least resistance, comes from brain science. The concept is simply that, we're forming all these wrinkles in our brains and they're connecting different synapses. And the less wrinkly part, the kind of straight connections, are where we can process information fastest. And so our current paths to least resistance actually live in our visual processing abilities. 30% of our cerebral cortex is made up of visual processing skills, while only 3% is made up of the ability to process the sound around us. And if you think about the fact that we can be in a loud room and hear our name from across the room, just from something where it's subconsciously hitting us to a conscious level, that's with only 3% of our brain power consuming all of the noise around us. So with 30% of our brain power consuming all the visual content around us, it makes sense that we are able to connect visually far easier. So knowing that, you really have to kind of lean into universal iconography. Universal iconography connects with us super quick. Think about a recycling sign. You can see a recycling sign from across a room and okay, I go and I recycle my trash over there. You can see a caution wet floor sign as you're walking through an airport and hey, if I walk there, I'm going to slip, I'm going to fall, I'm going to break my back. All of these things without having a paragraph of information saying to you, if you walk here, you're going to slip, you're going to fall, you're going to break your back, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah. Someone shows a post with a red, white, and blue Q. I know they're batshit crazy.
Exactly. 100%. And that's the thing. It's all about those visuals where we come to these quick conclusions when we see specific visual content. So that psychology is universal, but there's also personal psychology. I mean, we can use politics as an example. If you're trying to connect with Trump supporters, then you're going to use visuals that are very specific to that crowd. Versus if you're connecting with Biden supporters, you're going to use a very different set of visuals. So you have to consider what the end audience assumptions are and wants are, and you have to also design for those specifically.
Now, have you dealt with that particular thing where you get a client and they want you to design an infographic to promote something that you may find morally dubious? Do you take the job or have you denied clients?
I have denied clients. It's such an interesting thing because I look at all of the different debates out there right now about whether a small business owner is allowed to deny service based on their own beliefs. And the fact is I have denied service based on my own beliefs, and I think that small business owners should have that capability and that right. It's their business. And so, I remember the first time I had to say no to a client, and I'm not going to say who that client is, but I will say that they were a major Fortune 500 company that was participating in stuff that we did not agree with as a company ourselves. And we hire and fire by the values of our company. We hire and fire our employees by values. We hire and fire our clients by values as well.
It's one of the things I love about being an entrepreneur is being able to just, say to a client, you're kind of a pain in the ass and I don't want to work with you anymore. And that's one of the best things ever.
I have a question. I want to want to talk about explainer videos a little bit. So we haven't really gone that direction, because like back in like 2015, like the Fiverr 2-minute explainer videos got big and really popular, and like all the SaaS companies were doing these 2-minute. There's actually, I think they're still doing them. These 2-minute explainer videos that are made on like Pop2 or whatever, I forget what the name of the software was, but this Tune software that everybody was using the same graphics, same thing. Can you talk a little bit about like quality explainer videos? What you see is necessary in
2021
now, like what's working? Because again, I see so many people that are just using this generic template, and like it's such a turnoff now, in my opinion, anyway.
I agree entirely. That's the issue with templates. That's the issue with DIY solutions, is everybody will glom onto those, and then all of a sudden it feels redundant and overused, and all of your investment of time and money just disappears. And so a good explainer video is going to be anywhere from 60 to 90 seconds in length, although these days 60 seconds tends to be the sweet spot. In fact, if people see that it's over 90 seconds in length, you're only going to get about 47% of your audience pressing play. So you want to keep it at least under 90 seconds. Other good aspects of a great explainer video include having a 3-act structure. In 60 seconds to 90 seconds, you can still do a 3-act structure. The first act is introducing the problem. The second act is where you spend the meat of that explainer video. That's the bulk of the time, maybe 30 to 45 seconds of it, where you're talking about how your brand or service is the solution. And then the final act is the call to action. A really great explainer video makes the customer the hero of the story, not the product or service. The product or service is there to empower the customer, not there as the end-all, be-all hero of the story. It should utilize very little text on screen, a professional voiceover service. In fact, you could go to voices.com, great website to get amazing voiceover artists. So, you have to get a good custom voiceover for it. You also have to ensure that you're doing more than what PowerPoint can do. Don't just animate things left to right and up and down and zooming in from nothing to something larger. Don't just do that. If you can do it in PowerPoint, it's not worth making your entire explainer video that. Now, I'm not saying that those animations won't happen here and there, but your explainer video should really kind of have a lot of camera movement. And the more camera movement you have in an explainer video, the more successful it is. And by camera movement, when I'm talking about something animated, people might be saying, what the heck does that mean? But the fact is a great animator can make it feel like a camera is panning around in a scene. Mm-hmm. Don't rest too heavily on typography in an explainer video. We used to live in a world where kinetic typography was all the rage in videos. It lasted for about 2 years. It just doesn't really drive much attention anymore. Don't do a whiteboard video. Those were also overdone, and therefore they're no longer that great.
With a little hand?
Yes. Don't use stock photography. And if you're going to have characters, make them animate in a realistic way. Don't just simply have a character standing there doing nothing, or don't make it look like some paper doll has just been dropped onto the scene. They have to truly animate like a real character would. But all that takes time. A good explainer video is about 200 to 300 hours of work. It's not a quick and easy thing to do. And so one of the biggest mistakes out there is people see all these kind of cheap, quick churn solutions and say, oh, I'm going to go buy that explainer video service. But the only way somebody can turn around an explainer video in under a week is by relying heavily on templates. And because of those templates, your script has to be written to match that template instead of written to best display your product or service. Mm-hmm. And so if you really want to succeed, you have to have something that can be informed by the narrative of your script. And if it has to be informed by that, it has to be custom and original.
So how, I have a question, like, how long do you think you can maintain like a still shot? And this can go into regular video too. Because like I look at like, you know, what we're doing right now, we can get away with this because we're live. But like if we put this video on YouTube, you know, people have trouble engaging with this kind of content for long term without like camera cuts, without like stock footage inserted in there, or like different like movements. And so I'm kind of curious, like, what are you seeing in terms of like how long can like one shot kind of be on screen before you need to make some sort of a cut? Like what kind of attention span are you seeing people have?
So when it's a short form video, we're talking about a couple of seconds. When it's like, let's say a presentation that you're doing and it's going to be maybe 30 minutes. Well, something like that, you might want to switch every 30 seconds or so. And so it does depend on the length of the video itself. But yeah, when it's short, I mean, we're kind of jumping to, if not the next scene, the next angle as quickly as we can. Because that's the other thing to note. You can have the same scene and a lot going on in that singular scene. But just like in live action, where you're jumping from angle to angle, you can do that in a motion graphic as well. And it's just about bringing in that diversity because it really engages the audience in the eye. I mean, brands today, they're not competing with others in their industry. They're competing with Netflix. They're competing with Hulu and Prime and all of these blockbuster entertainment solutions out there. That's who you're competing with. So you have to deliver at that level these days.
And short attention spans. I mean, you know, I kind of lament this particular thing. And as a filmmaker, Amy, I'm sure you can connect with this. One of the best opening credit sequences in my mind in cinema history is Once Upon a Time in the West, Sergio Leone. And it's 10 minutes of three guys just waiting for a train. And it's so well done. You're the way that it's shot. But the other day I'm watching a movie, I forget what it was, with my son. And I said, hey, watch this movie. It's a classic. I try to show him older movies. And 30 seconds into it, he's like, Dada, this is boring. I'm like, it just started,
it hasn't started
man.
yet. This is the credit sequence.
It's like, come on. And so the kind of the impatience to have things start happening right away. You know, it's like
Michael Bay.
This is, you got to have an explosion in the first.
It's Michael Bay.
His fault. All right, it's his fault for this.
Yeah, and I lament the fact that those days are behind us. In fact, the whole idea of the movie going to the movie theater seems like it's going to be behind us.
Yeah,
now especially. It was going to be behind us anyway, but it just became a lot faster. I have one more, or maybe two more questions here. One, you follow Gary Vaynerchuk at all, Amy?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so I've seen like on LinkedIn recently, and possibly on Facebook as well. He's been doing like this new format that's like 4 slides. They're kind of like motion slides, and they kind of have like a story that they tell. And that's kind of a new thing that is that's kind of starting to become a trend, but not. I would say it's not that widespread yet. Are you seeing a lot of people adopt that strategy where it's like this, like the 4 frames and like the story that's being told with nice graphics and everything?
Yeah,
almost like a comic book.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, once Instagram stories started to retrain our brain in taking in information that way, we're starting to see people really experiment with different ways to execute on that. And I do think that that's going to be a pretty big trend for a short period of time. I don't think it's something that's going to stick around for all of that long, but I do think that I'd say over the next 6 months to a year, lean into that because there's a lot of opportunity there.
One of our listeners, Gerard Foes, just asked about the.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I hope so. I'm sorry if Gerard, if I got that wrong, please correct me. But he was wondering about the whiteboard illustrations with the hands. Are those still relevant? Do you No. The answer is no.
No.
She said
Gerard.
that earlier.
So
no.
walk away from it. Put it down. Move away slowly from the whiteboard hand drawing video.
Yeah.
The other thing I just wanted to bring up, because I think it's interesting, and you'd probably know a little bit about this, is like the idea of Netflix thumbnails or even YouTube thumbnails. Because we had a guy from Netflix that worked in the art department on this show, and we spent some time talking. Well, he was doing a lot of billboards for Netflix also, but we spent a little bit of time talking about the thumbnails and how not only are the thumbnails like not only do they invest a ton of money in the thumbnails, but there's a custom experience. Like different users see different thumbnails based on like the profile that they put together on you, or your algorithm's different based on your history, your viewing history, things like that. Do you think that like websites will eventually integrate that kind of technology also, where because we talked a little bit about this on the show too, is like custom experiences and dynamic content based on, like CRM tags or whatever we've kind of stored on somebody. Do you see that as like the next thing that's going to happen, and like and the visual can play into that?
Yeah, I actually think it's really important. I mean, the Netflix thumbnails are a perfect example. There are shows that I won't even press play on until suddenly that thumbnail changes and I see, oh, that actor's in this. Okay, I will watch this.
Yeah.
I mean, those thumbnails convert me so quickly. It's crazy. And there's a great company out of San Jose called Cloudinary. Cloudinary is really focused on helping to speed up highly visually rich sites. And they have a lot of solutions already for dynamically loading imagery. And so my guess is they're going to be one of the companies on the forefront of making that easy for all of us. But it has to be easy. It has to be something that doesn't bog down our sites. I mean, there's so much still that has to change and shift to just make that experience a legitimate experience that people will really be willing to adopt as a brand. But the other thing worth considering is Google is trying to make it so that their AI can read your visuals, so that their AI can identify if you have quality visual content on your site, if you're utilizing the same illustration style throughout, and things like that. And so if you're dynamically changing those thumbnails, one question is going to be, what's going to come first, the Google algorithm shift or the dynamic change of thumbnails? There's going to be something.
Yeah, and if it's slowing down your site, that's double whammy for you, your SEO.
Exactly.
So what about YouTube thumbnails? Any advice on those for gaining attention? Have you worked on those at all? Like, because that's another thing that I know YouTube thumbnails are hugely important for the success of channels. And those seem to be like, you have the PNG cutout of the person's face put on a background. I seem to see those over and over, but tell me what your experience is with those.
I've seen thumbnails work in a couple of different ways on YouTube. I mean, the fact is it does determine whether you want to hit play or not on what's presented to you. So when we're doing a motion graphic, for instance, we will sometimes custom design the thumbnail so that the thumbnail itself tells you what that motion graphic is about, more encourages you to hit play, or maybe it gives you the 5 takeaways about what you're about to see. Sometimes if we're putting out something that's going to be maybe a deep dive into a product, the thumbnail is a visual of that product. So having a thumbnail to encourage click-throughs and plays is really important. We've A/B tested thumbnails, not just on YouTube and Vimeo, but we've also A/B tested them on somebody's homepage as a hero image. So the thumbnails do make a difference. And we've definitely found that letting somebody know what they're about to watch with a thumbnail makes a big difference. Now, that said, I said it goes 2 ways. I've also seen thumbnails that are completely have completely nothing to do at all with the content, but people use those thumbnails because people press play. Oftentimes, those thumbnails are pretty risque. So typically, like I see, for instance, YouTube influencers who might be a husband and wife team, and they do all these vlogs, and people watch the vlogs. All of a sudden, all the video thumbnails for all of their vlogs are pictures of the wife in scantily clad outfits. And that's what gets people to subscribe and press play, even though none of that actually exists in the content of the videos.
You don't know me. You don't know me.
Right?
I can't help it. It's a glandular problem. So look, we're coming up to the towards the end of the show. I want to find out. I see your book behind you. For those of you, if you're listening to the podcast, you obviously cannot see that. But if you want to see us record live, we usually do this on Wednesday night. And please follow us on the LinkedIn page, and you can see whenever we do a live thing,
or on the YouTube page. But you gotta stay still through the one camera angle though.
I know. Well, this is a listening experience. We do visual jokes; they're rare, but it happens. But I want to find out a bit about the book. So can you kind of go over the book? And I'm assuming it has some really cool graphical images in it. Yes,
definitely. So the book is called Killer Visual Strategies. The exact same name as my company. And the book is really meant to be for actually any audience, but I wrote it to empower marketers primarily, although I'm finding that designers are getting equal value out of it. It is a book broken into 3 parts. Part 1 talks all about the science behind visual communication, the psychology behind visual communication, and all of the kind of environmental factors that have driven us to be so visually fluent as a culture today. Part 2 of the book is super hands-on. It's 8 rules of visual communication that any marketer can make sure that all of their content adheres to, whether they're doing it themselves or hiring a freelancer or an agency. It tells you exactly how to set those expectations, and it's filled with exercises to help you really make sure that you're employing what you learn. It's also written in a way where you don't have to read it end to end. You can just read the opening section of every rule and take a lot away from that. Or you can just read the key takeaway boxes and take a lot away from that. And then part 3 of the book dives heavily into the process you need to follow to create great visual content, to ensure it's going to succeed online in your marketing campaigns, as well as how to hire, who to hire, what type of team to build, what you should be paying them, all of those things. So it's really meant to be kind of this full force book for any marketer out there that wants to master visual content marketing.
Nice.
And again, it's called Killer Visual Strategies. It's available on Amazon, which is where I recommend getting it from because my publisher can continue to put a nice discount on the book on Amazon. It's a little pricier everywhere else.
Is it the Kindle version that you get the discount on, or both versions? Both
versions. And honestly, I actually suggest the print version over the Kindle version. The Kindle version's great, but it is a very visually rich book.
Yeah.
And so to be able to have that, in print in your hand to flip through, I've had so many people say they get more value out of it. I've had a lot of people buy the ebook and then go buy the print book because of just the value of all of those visuals. And we practice what we preach. It is a highly, highly visual book.
Nice.
Yeah. And for me, like I have to, if I'm reading a book, like I actually these days like write in the book and take notes and things like that. Like that helps me a lot. Now it's not good for the resale of the book, but it is good from a learning standpoint for me. So
I do the exact same thing.
So I'm definitely going to get this book. I commandeered my wife's e-reader, so I've been doing a lot of reading on tablets. But I do miss the book, and this sounds like a great book to get. So I'm definitely going to get it. And it sounds like it would also give me a way to, if I'm going to hire that expert to do an infographic or some sort of visual thing, it sounds like it's a good way for me to kind of storyboard and conceptualize what I want.
Or like a roadmap.
A roadmap, yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, I am definitely going to get that because it sounds fabulous, and it can be right here on my coffee table.
And I have like a million more questions for you, but we are out of time, I think. So I know Andros has his important question to ask you, though.
Yes, and that important question is at the end of every show, we always ask our guests, what are you most geeky about right at this particular moment?
And it doesn't have to be work related. So like we talk about like Netflix movies. We'll talk, anything. It could be work related, or if you do work related, we kind of want both though.
Yeah. Hobbies, binge watching, comic books.
Oh man, I binge watch way too much, especially in the time of COVID. I constantly binge watch. But I will say it's not a healthy hobby, but I have definitely been consuming more politics than anybody ever should over the past 6 months. And today was actually the first day when I said, you know what, I'm not going to listen to the NPR politics podcast while I'm getting ready for work today. I decided to just let that one rest for the day. But I do geek out a ton about politics. And I think it's because I've always been somebody who, I come from the Midwest. I live in Seattle. So I have a pretty healthy mix of Republicans and Democrats in my kind of group of people that I love and care dearly about. And so I've been able to kind of teeter a bit of a moderate line, although I definitely lean left. And at least by digging into politics, I've been able to bridge some gaps with a lot of people who I really love and care about. So I geek out about it like crazy so that I can have intelligent conversations that hopefully bring people together instead of divide them.
Have you ever thought about running?
I have spent some time in my past life as a political activist, and that was enough politics for me from a professional standpoint. I used to run a small nonprofit, and so yeah, I've experienced it. I'm perfectly happy not doing that. But what I do love, honestly, is creating great, and this is so nerdy, creating great visual content for politics, because there's so much misinformation out there that if we can just take these complex ideas that have people honestly debating and fighting left and right and find a way to bring people together with clear visuals, in my opinion, that's one of the most powerful things out there. It's also a great way to stop the spread of misinformation.
Have you been doing that recently?
Yeah, definitely.
Are you posting that stuff on Reddit at all?
Not at the moment. We actually, right before this podcast recording started, we just finished up a visual for the NAACP that's breaking down all of the key battleground areas and all of the mail that is still sitting at the USPS that was not delivered to those battleground areas.
You've got some interesting clients. You have the United Nations on there too, on the bio. I remember that. I just want to say, like, I've been, very geeky about politics recently, and I've gotten more into it over the last probably 5-6 years. Like, to the point I now know like all the senators and House, all the. Like, I don't think I ever knew the names as well before, even though I followed it.
Right.
But it's getting to the point where like now I like know everybody and I know their faces and. But to a level that I agree, like it's a little bit unhealthy. So I've had to like put like timers on my browser that will like, at least warn me that I've been consuming it too long. And then like, but last night I was up till 4 a.m. watching the election results trickle in, and there's really no value to that, but it was just like, I just got hooked and I stayed up. And that's what I guess that was what keeping me geeky was the U.S. election, which it looks like Biden is going to eke out a victory. I don't know what the aftermath of that will look like, so I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far. But at this moment, at least the last time I looked at the stats, it looked like Biden was going to eke out a very small victory.
Well, it's we are. I'm sure by the time we post this podcast, it will all.
By the time we post
the answer to it. But I'm with you. I had an election hangover this morning.
Yeah.
Where it was like because I moved to the Netherlands 4 years ago. When exactly 4 years ago, I made my decision to move to the Netherlands. In fact, today's the anniversary of that. And it's bizarro because I have people here in the Netherlands. It seems like most people know more about American politics than most Americans do.
Right.
And so they kind of come up to me and they give me this long stare and they're like, why? And I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, but that's why I'm here. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I get a pass, but
I will say that it's sometimes weird because like, I know like so many names in politics. I know so many names in marketing, and then having conversations with people that just don't know, like I take it for granted that like, oh, this person. I'll just like mention, like name drop a couple like politicians or senators and they're like, no idea what I'm talking about. So it is like people are, I tend to think that people know more about politics than they do. I don't know, but it usually is the opposite.
Well, as George Carlin says, think of the dumbest person you've ever met, the absolute dumbest person you've ever met. And then just remember that half of the population is dumber than that. So, Justin, what are you geeky about right now, my man?
Well, I mean, other than politics, I did watch the new Borat movie, and I enjoyed it. It like the Borat character doesn't hold up as well as it did in like 2006, I think. But some of the scenes were still really funny, and there are some shocking ones in there. Particularly one of them where there's a dance scene. That's all I'll just say. It's a dance scene, but it was pretty graphic.
I wanted my wife to see that with me, and she's just like, absolutely not. I'm like, can we give it at least the 10-minute rule? She's like, absolutely not. So I have to still watch that.
But I do enjoy Sacha Baron Cohen for the most part. So.
Oh, the guy's brilliant. I mean, I did see Chicago 7 on Netflix, and that guy's amazing. He's an amazing actor. He's an amazing comedian. He's an amazing writer. He's an eloquent speaker. The speech he did about social media and Facebook was unreal. I mean, the man is definitely made my list of top 3 people I would love to have dinner with at some point. But and he could show up as Ali or Borat. I don't care. I have a kind of an interesting thing. So if you have Audible and you have the subscription where you get the free books. Some of my dad's books are on Audible in the free section. My dad was a science fiction writer, and he wrote this book that I haven't read yet, and it's called Venus Plus X. It's so if you have the Audible subscription, it's free, or you can just buy it on Amazon. Very interesting book. It on some level it's a little dated, but it's about a guy who wakes up and he's in some strange futuristic city with these humans that are both male and female, and they are this new evolution of human being that has basically figured out all the problems that humans were suffering, and they solved them. And part of that was having a genderless society where both where everyone has male and female anatomy, and their worship, their god that they worship is the child. So as you worship the child is worshiping you as a parent. And so by having this symbiotic relationship, it helps to equalize where people are. And the best the best bit about the society is they have a technology that if you're having an argument, you can show them a mirror of what you look like to everybody else. Now, you can't use that on yourself. Someone has to give it to you, and they have to ask for consent. So they have to say, may I show you what you look like right now? So they can't just spring it on you. And in doing that, everybody is very conscious about how they approach people, because they don't want to, they realize that they could very easily look like a big idiot.
They don't just all say, no, I don't want to know.
They could, I guess. That's kind of my take on listening to the show. I don't, because
ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, I don't want to hear what a big idiot I am.
I will add that the Marketing Geeks, as of I think a week ago, was added to Audible's catalog of podcasts. So we are on Audible now. You can listen to the Marketing Geeks on Audible. We are on Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcast, like everything pretty much.
And Amy, where can people find you if they want to know more about you? You said you do talks, you do different things. Where can we find out more about you?
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on LinkedIn. So on Twitter, it's at Amy Balliett. For those of you listening, Balliett is spelled B like in boy, Alliett. Very weird spelling. So people usually don't know it.
And AMY, just in case they try to put an I in there or something. AMY.
True. Yeah. Traditional Amy spelling. And then you can find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where I post most stuff. I actually, talking about Netflix plus politics, I watched the documentary, The Social Dilemma, about 3 months ago. Haven't been on Facebook since. So you're not going to really find me on Facebook, but Twitter and LinkedIn.
We've talked quite a bit about it. We haven't done a whole episode on that documentary, but we've talked about it ad nauseum, I'd say, a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting one. I mean, the movie itself is a little cheesy in some respects because it's just like the cut scenes and some of those things. But like the content is pretty shocking. But just to take the thesis of that movie, which is basically that social media is contributing to the polarization of the country, and look at the results like 2010 to 2020 and like what's happened. It's like, oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
If this is true, like this is like, if we go another 10 years, it really could be like doomsday. I mean, it's pretty crazy how much that has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder about that. Like 150 years from now, are people going to look back and be like, oh my God, what they did with social media back then? It's the way we talk about like the way we treat mental illness in the dark ages. You know, it's like, it's bananas. And here's before we close the show, there's a funny anecdote. I talk a lot of shit about Facebook on the show, and we started doing live streams on Facebook of the show. And at some point I went to log in and it said, oh, sorry, you need to verify your identity. So I never changed my old email address. And so it was sending me like verification notifications to an email address I don't have anymore. So I'm essentially locked out of Facebook. And I'm okay with that, except for the fact that a client of mine had their Facebook page through my account, and I have to get back in there now. And I'm like, I'm bummed out about that. It's like
you could do it, I'm sure, but yeah, it's going to be a hassle.
But people kill your Facebook page. It's Mark Zuckerberg is an evil alien sent from the planet Sirius to destroy us. Please destroy your Facebook page. And with that, everybody, I want to thank our guest, Amy Balliett. That is awesome. Standing next to me is our show producer and AKA my lovely wife, Iris. Iris, hey, tell me what's new? Geeky about right at the moment?
What I'm geeky about, well, it's been a while since I was on the show because I actually have been super busy. At this moment, my passion is making little promo movies and websites, which I like for the creative process. So what I do is I take business owners, we have strategy sessions, they go through a transformation, they had a business going, but some things changed and the way the look and feel and the branding doesn't fit what they do anymore. So we changed that around. And part of that is making a movie or building a website. So yeah, that's my passion at the moment, being creative and producing stuff.
It's kind of in line with our guest today too.
Oh,
that's
really?
Cool.
Oh, yeah. I should listen to our guest.
Yeah, you got to listen to the guest here too, because it's kind of in line with
yeah, actually, we have to listen to all the episodes and make a summary because all the guests have great tips and great business.
You know what? If I listen to some of our guests, I might even make more money.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have more responsibility.
Well, it's like the shoemaker or the painter. You know, it's always better. It's the client's house or the shoes of the clients. That's what
I always say. Ask a shoemaker's wife where her shoes are.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we're having fun. We're having an amazing time here.
I love it. We're in our little COVID.
What are you watching on Netflix or Hulu? What does Andros have you watching over there?
Oh, we're watching Netflix and we're watching that new show with the girl that's a chess player.
Queen's Gambit?
Queen's Gambit, yeah.
Queen's Gambit,
yeah,
okay. I haven't seen it yet. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah,
okay, is it good?
Yeah, it starts very good. And I just had a 2-hour rest because I gave training today, leadership training, and it was very intense and cool. But after that, I'm really exhausted. So I watched 2 hours to the Little Woman movie, and it was so sweet.
Is it sweet?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you got to see that without me.
It
was perfect, yeah. And Justin, what are you geeky about at the moment?
Well, I did watch. I've already kind of given my geeky on the show.
Oh, okay.
But I did watch this documentary on the game. I think it's Go, which is like a big game in Japan, I think it was, or Asia. It's this like board game thing, and I watched this documentary where this guy was playing against artificial intelligence, and it was quite interesting. It was a battle of the wits, but ultimately AI one.
Okay.
So sad.
And have you heard about the Playbook?
The Playbook.
The show on Netflix. That's a show about coaches that tell about their biggest success, like baseball coach, football coach, soccer coach, etc.
That sounds good.
Today, I heard about it today. It should be very good.
Okay, I'll check that one out. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so back to Andros.
All right.
Thank you, Iris.
Iris Sturgeon, everybody. There she is, my wife.
There she was.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are the Marketing Geeks. And we are
in quarantine.
Out in quarantine.
In quarantine.
Stay classy.
Oh, fantastic. Marketing Geeks, come on, bring your friends. We'll learn marketing from distant lands. Andros Sturgeon and Justin Womack, the fun will never end. It's Marketing Geeks.
Marketing